FPL Game Week 35, my first transfer plans. In today's video, we'll have a look at some of the key questions. With just 4 weeks left to go this season, we need to know which players are really the ones that are going to get us over the line in those few weeks. Will we have a double in Game Week 36 after Aston Villa got knocked out of the FA Cup? We'll take a look at my team. I still own Phil Foden and Bukayo Saka, who feel like issues going forward. Which are the players I should be prioritizing selling? And when is the best time to play the chips if you still have them left? What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here. And free hit week is going well. We still have one game to go on Thursday night. I'm currently, I think, on 85 points, although there might be bonus points for Salah, which changes that. I'm on a green arrow from about 7.5k to basically bang on 6k. It could have been more if I'd have owned someone like a Kieran Trippier, who I did take out of my draft at the last minute and went with Pope instead. But generally, things have gone pretty well. Of course, I still have Chris Wood to play. The average person still has one player left to play on their free hit, with some Mbeumo's, some Matt Sells, some people with Chris Wood in there as well. So still a little bit to play for going into Thursday night. So no official rank update as yet at time recording. But we're going to have a look now to Game Week 35 with all of us getting our teams back. Or if you're not on free hit, just looking at your team going into the final 4 weeks of the season. Now, 4 weeks left. Normally what we do at the beginning of this video is have a look straight away at my team. But actually what we're going to do today is take a look at some of the big questions, players to target and stuff like that before we go and evaluate my team. Because the big overarching thing in this video is going to be, do not make any early transfers until we get to probably, well, hopefully earlier on in the week, because we are expecting doubles and fixture rearrangements to be announced. But at some point later on in this week, we are expecting that. We don't know quite when it's going to land. So every team left in the league has 4 games left to play. The players you buy into your team may well be dictated if we have doubles or blanks left this season. So let's start off by talking specifically about if we're going to get doubles or blanks between now and the end of the season. So what happens in Game Week 37 is there is a clash between the FA Cup final and Game Week 37. So Manchester City going up against Bournemouth in Game Week 37 and Crystal Palace going up against Wolves. Of course, Manchester City against Crystal Palace is the FA Cup final. Now that fixture, those 2 fixtures will need to move from the weekend of Game Week 37. But in theory, they could move both forward and backwards. They could move into both Game Week 36 and Game Week 37. So they could just move into the midweek of 37, meaning we have no doubles and no blanks. Or they could move forward into Game Week 36, giving us doubles in Game Week 36 for these 4 teams and then blanks in Game Week 37. It feels like an absolute lottery trying to predict which way they're going to go. Now, the reason that Aston Villa going out of the competition was so important is because if Aston Villa got to the final, their fixture against Spurs would basically have to move forward into 36 because Spurs are still in the Europa League and that Europa League final is in the midweek of 37. So it couldn't have stayed in the weekend because Villa would be in the FA Cup final, and it couldn't go to the midweek because Spurs would be in the Europa League final. So it would have to move forward to Game Week 36. But Manchester City and Palace are not in Europe, so that fixture could go to either. It is a complete lottery. So please, please, please save your transfers. If there's any chance that your transfers are impacted by who doubles and if there's doubles or blanks, you have to save your transfers. Now, we might get an announcement some point early on this week because it doesn't give fans that much time to make arrangements. So they might not wait until Friday, which is the sort of general usual time that we expect to have announcements. We've had announcements earlier on in weeks before, and it might be that they're already planning in place. And we might even get announcements on, Sunday evening, Monday morning, Tuesday. We might get earlier announcements. So until we get that, really, really wait. Because, for example, if suddenly Wolves double in Game Week 36 with Brighton at home, Palace away, and Bournemouth double with Villa at home, City away, and City double and Palace double, suddenly their assets become much more important. But if they don't double, then buying Bournemouth with Villa and City in 2 single game weeks become less important. So it's a 50-50. If the likes of City and Palace and Bournemouth and Wolves are likely to get a double, we don't know. We should know almost certainly by the Game Week 35 deadline, though, so do just hold your transfers. Now, there is a little bit of added confusion. We thought as soon as Villa got knocked out that Villa Spurs would not be able to double in Game Week 36. However, Spurs have tweeted on Sunday that they have lodged an appeal and they are discussing with the Premier League about still potentially moving that fixture because they want extra rest going into the Europa League final if they make it on the Wednesday. Now, this fixture could move forward to the Saturday. The issue with it being it's currently on the Sunday. The Saturday is left completely clear for the FA Cup final, and we don't expect that the Premier League and Sky will want to put the fixture on a Saturday. So it could move further forward into the Friday. There's already a game on Friday night in Chelsea Man United. So the most likely scenario is that it moves forward to Thursday, which again would give Villa and Spurs a double in 36 and a blank in game week 37. Now, there's a small possibility that FPL would just move the deadline from the Friday night to the Thursday night if they put it there. But that is something that very, very rarely happens. It has happened occasionally, but it's very, very scarce that that does happen. The other option is the Premier League just say, no, you have this game on the Sunday. That is when it is. You're going to play it then, and then you'll play the Europa League final. And that has happened many times before. But Spurs have tweeted that they have started discussions with the Premier League. So basically, we should know all of this by game week 35. Almost certainly we'll know it all by the deadline. Chances are we'll know it on probably Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. We might know it earlier on in the week, but there is a 50-50 chance, and it is literally a toss of a coin whether any of these doubles happen. And we could have 6 teams doubling, we could have no teams doubling, and it is literally a toss of a coin. So please wait until the deadline before making any early transfers. So just to go back and talk about a few other of the key questions. So first one is, who is the best captain this week? And actually, it's a really, really difficult or open week for captaincy depending on how you see it. So there's no real standout fixture. We have heard that Haaland is back in Manchester City training, which means Marmoush at home to Wolves, although it's the Friday night, might have been the very popular captaincy option. But if Haaland is in contention to start and that potentially diminishes Marmoush's appeal a little bit, doesn't necessarily make him as good an option. Mo Salah goes away to Chelsea, and Chelsea have not been amazing, but they're not conceding a lot of goals, and Liverpool have now officially won the Premier League. Congratulations to all Liverpool fans. You've officially done it. It's been in the works. It's been basically happening for months now, but it's officially confirmed. So do they take their foot off the gas a little bit? Do they play a little bit more free-flowing? And also Salah hasn't been that lucrative in terms of goal scoring recently. You've got Isak going away to Brighton, and then the other one that you've got is Brian Mbeumo hosting Manchester United. Of course, that game comes in between the 2 Europa League semi-finals for Manchester United, and we expect them to rotate quite heavily. So there are a lot of options this week. You could also have a look at Jared Bowen going up against a Spurs side, again, in between their 2 Europa League semi-finals. So there is a lot of captaincy options, and no one is clear-cut. If Haaland is still out, I expect Marmoush at home to Wolves to probably be popular, but just coming off a blank in back-to-back games in a double game week will put some people off going with Marmoush. It is a great opportunity if you're chasing rank to try and pick someone a little bit different. The issue is Everton, Ipswich, Southampton and Leicester all play each other this week, so it makes buying players for captaincy really difficult because you can't target those teams. So at the moment, it's wide open. At the moment, my armband is on Marmoush, based on updates we might get from Erling Haaland later on in the week. Next up is for your remaining chips. Now, of course, this will depend on if we get doubles, because if we get doubles, having your triple captain or having your bench boost in game week 36, if there are doubles, is going to be the best thing to do. If there are no doubles, game week 37 or game week 36 probably offer equal opportunity. I'm not sure I'd be playing your bench boost in game week 38 just because we might get some rotation for players in your squad, and there's unlikely to get a full 15 players out that week. If you've got assistant manager, game week 35, Crystal Palace have Nottingham Forest at home in game week 35, which does present table bonus. And if you're playing it this week, it's probably the best opportunity to play it. You could play it either this week or next week on Pep Guardiola if you want to be safe. They have Wolves this week and Southampton next week, and maybe a double in game week 36 as well. If you don't want to play it this week, for example, your wild card in game week 36, you could look at Wolves for their potential table bonus, or you go safe with Manchester City again. Free hit, if you've still got it. If there are doubles left in game week 36, you could play it in game week 36 to load up in doublers and have a squad ready for 37. The other option is you load up in doublers with your normal squad in 36 and free hit in game week 37. If there's no doubles left and they're all just single game weeks, you could just play it in game week 38 to try and get the best squad for the final day of the season, and that often can work quite well. If you've got the wildcard draft, if you're playing the wildcard this week, game week 35 is probably the best one as long as we get the doubles announced and the fixtures rescheduled before the game week 35 deadline. Again, if you need a draft for that, we will put it out later on this week. And just having a look at a fixture ticker, I haven't had time to fully do my graphic, my nice one of the fixture ticker. So just to cover off a few things, if you are looking for players to buy, again, a caveat, players who double might become more appealing, but of course, every team left has 4 games. So if you don't have a free hit and you want to buy a doubler, you've then got an issue when they blank. So basically, let's look at the teams with the best remaining fixtures this season. Ipswich at the top, realistically, you're not buying. You've got Nottingham Forest, you've got Manchester City, you've got Everton, Brentford, West Ham, and Aston Villa. Those are probably the teams that you're looking to buy from. When we look at some of the players that I'm considering to buy this week, they all play for sort of that group of teams. They've all got quite a lot to play for in the league as well, maybe outside of West Ham. Brentford still have a small opportunity of clawing their way back into a European squad, but Forest, Manchester City, you've got Aston Villa in there, and even Everton, they've got not that much to play for. But Forest, City, and Aston Villa got a lot to play for, and then it's Brentford, West Ham, and Everton with good fixtures left. So we're 10 minutes into this video, and it is actually time to actually look at my team for the first time. And my team has come back after, of course, we have played the free hit. So this was my team from the double in game week 33. I've got 1 transfer and now 1.6 million in the bank because I've got the money back from the assistant manager. And with 4 weeks left, I have 1 chip left to play, which is the bench boost. If there are doubles in game week 36, that is most likely. If there are no doubles, I do think game week 37 is most likely. But with only 4 weeks left, I basically have to just consider the bench boost every week, and we will do that. And actually, the bench looks okay. We've got double Forest away at Palace. We've got Areola at home to Spurs. And we currently have Phil Foden, who doesn't look like he's ever going to start another Manchester City game again. And he looks like a real issue in my squad. I don't think this is the week that I'm going to play it. Now, if Nottingham Forest were to keep a clean sheet away at Crystal Palace, then it might end up being the best week I have left. But I don't expect this is the week that I will play my bench boost. My plan is as well, is not to worry about it. If there are doubles especially, we don't really have transfers left to be worrying about fringe players in our squad. The bench will have to be what the bench will have to be. I will not be using loads of transfers to try and fix it because I don't have loads of transfers, and it will be what it will be. If I end up getting 8 because I have 4 players who all blank on my bench, it will be 8 points, and that will just be what it is. I'm not going to be taking hits to try and get players on my bench, to try and strengthen my squad just to play the bench boost. It's not going to happen. It's going to be the worst bench boost I think I've ever played, but it will be what it will be. Looking at my starting 11 this week, David Raya at home to Bournemouth. Now, Arsenal fixture is in between the 2 Champions League games. Now, they do play Tuesday and Wednesday, so the turnaround is quite good. I expect David Raya to play. He's definitely going to start for me. Gvardiol and Munoz are also definitely going to start. The attacking threat of Munoz, they've looked pretty good. They played well in the FA Cup as well. They have a decent break until that Monday night, whereas Nottingham Forest, who they play against, has to play Thursday and then Monday. So I do fancy Palace in that game. And again, we spoke about it with assistant manager. If you want to play it on Glasner, it's a good opportunity to do it. And then the final starting defender is Konza or one of those Forest defenders. Let's see how Forest get on Thursday. At the moment, it's Konza at home to Fulham. I do think now that they're out of the FA Cup, they're out of Europe, that Villa basically just have to prioritise the Premier League. Now, they don't keep a lot of clean sheets, so maybe going with Milenkovic or Williams for their attacking threat might be the better option. But at the moment, Konza is in at home to Fulham. Into my midfield. So Phil Foden has to be benched because he just doesn't look like he's going to get back into the team at any point. I am looking to sell him. We will look at some potential replacements in a moment. Mo Salah is in. Sarr is in against Forest. Bukayo Saka we'll talk about, and then Morgan Rogers. I don't really have a choice at the moment because I've got Phil Foden in my lineup. Now, Bukayo Saka is an interesting one. Let's see what happens with the midweek against PSG. Because of the turnaround, I do probably expect Saka to start. But now that the Liverpool have won the league, they basically have nothing to play for in their league games. So maybe Saka isn't nailed to play as many minutes as I want. So Saka and Foden do feel like long-term issues. But once game week 36 comes around, he has Liverpool away, Newcastle at home, and then Southampton away on the final day. I think he'll play those 3 games because they don't have Champions League left once game week 36 does roll around, because we'll either know they're definitely in the final or they'll have been knocked out. So there's no more Champions League once game week 36 comes until after the end of the season. So we might end up keeping Saka and just benching him this week. We might end up starting him. Phil Foden is definitely a bigger problem. Rogers and Sarr, I'm going to hold. Sarr and Gvardiol as well, scoring in the FA Cup, but nothing for when we own them in the league. But anyway, up front. So Mateta and Isak are definitely going to stay. I like them both. Marmoush is an interesting one. If Haaland is back, I do expect Marmoush to probably continue to play alongside Haaland, but he loses penalties. He's not as far forward, and his appeal will definitely drop. The County armband is currently on him at the moment, but that is something that I've got to keep my eye on as well. So when we have a look at players to buy, there aren't actually that many that I'm really considering. Now, this might change if we get doubles, for example. Like if Wolves were to double or Bournemouth were to double, then someone like a Kluivert or a Matheus Cunha would become appealing. But right now, the three midfielders I'm really looking at, Kevin De Bruyne, having a piece of that Manchester City attack, having the triple up, especially if we're not certain on Marmoush. He did blank both times in the double, but I do still like him as an option, especially if they do get the double. Outside of that, Brian Mbeumo and Bowen are two options I really like. They both play against Man United and Spurs, the two teams with the fixtures left in the Europa League, and those fixtures come between their two semi-finals as well. Bowen is a really nice option, and I'm almost certain that Brian Mbeumo will be coming into my squad this week as well. And the only other one is Ollie Watkins. Now, it sounds like Marcus Rashford has picked up an injury that might rule him out for the rest of the season, and if that is the case, then Ollie Watkins suddenly becomes very, very nailed for an Aston Villa team who score a lot of goals and have an awful lot to play for still in the Premier League. So if we got to a point where Marmoush suddenly looked like a real risk and I needed a striker and Rashford was out, Ollie Watkins would have to be on my radar. But I'm not expecting to make a forward transfer this week. We'll probably focus more on the midfielders, which De Bruyne and Mbeumo and Bowen are my top options at the moment. So going back to my squad and, in the idea of not having this video drag on too long, the general consensus is I'll buy Brian Mbeumo this week, probably for Phil Foden. And I might take a -4 for Bukayo Saka to Jared Bowen as well. Now, you're probably thinking, Harry, this squad doesn't need a -4. And I agree, but I do believe that I'm a transfer behind everyone at the moment, having Phil Foden in my squad. So part of me just wants to rip the Band-Aid off and get the -4 out of the way. I don't particularly think I need the -4 this week. I do think that Bowen and Mbeumo this week against Man United and Spurs are two really, really good options. So I could sell both of them. In theory, it'd probably be Morgan Rogers at home to Fulham. That would drop to the bench. I could also drop Sarr, given that I do have triple Crystal Palace up against a Forest team, which, although not playing that amazingly, do still have a lot to play for as well. But as I said, this is all theoretical. This is all potentials. This is all if, buts, and maybes, because we're expecting to know the Game Week 36 and Game Week 37 landscape. Are we going to get doubles? Are we going to get blanks? In theory, we could have as many as 6 doubles and as few as 0 as well. So that will just decide on a lot of transfers this week. It will also decide on where to play your chips, where to play my bench boost as well. So this is all theoretical. We also need an update on some injured players like Haaland. Is he going to be back? We also need updates on someone like a Marcus Rashford, and we need to see how teams get on later on this week, particularly with Arsenal still in Europe and with the game we have on Thursday as well. So we'll wrap it up there. If you have early questions that aren't already answered in this, drop them in the comments down below. As I said, a little bit of just patience. Let's wait and see if we get announcements this week, because it will dictate what we do with our transfers. It is, of course, we can't go piling into doublers if you don't have a free hit, though, because Game Week 37, if there's 6 teams blanking, could also be a bit of a minefield as well. Anyway, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you're new around here. Drop any early questions you have in the comments, and I'll be back again very soon.